So, Speak Up Club appreciates your presence, and we welcome you that you are here. And the event, as you know, is Velvet Revolution. What is now? What is next? So, as far as we are gathered together, we do think about what is currently going on in our country and what we should expect from now on. Hence, the importance of this discussion is obvious. So, this is a discussion, once more. So, you, the audience, and our online followers are welcome to ask your questions and state your opinion. To ask a question, please raise your hand. We will approach you and just say your name and your institution, where are you studying, and ask your question in a very short manner. So, now let me present our panelists, and I'm very happy to present them. So please greet them. Dr. Arto Vaun. He is the chair of the English and Communication Program and the director of the Center of Creative Writing. He is also on the editorial board of EVN Report, which was the leading English language news source during the Velvet Revolution. So please greet him. Yeah. Dr. Yevgenya Paturyan. She is an AUA PSIA alumna. She specializes in the sphere of civil society, political culture, volunteering, democratization of post-communist countries, research methodology, and corruption. Dr. Paturyan is the team leader of a 4-year research project about Armenian civil society and has authored publications in several news sources, including EVN Report. So, thanks. Mr. Samson Avetian. Yes, please. He is the founder and managing director of Aero Global Ltd. His professional activities include economic advisory to private investors, bank management teams, board membership, contributions to financial and economic media, and etc. He was elected as president of Harvard Club of Armenia 2017. Please. Next, our panelist is Ashot Voskanyan. He is associate professor at Yerevan State University and adjunct associate professor at the AUA. More than 50 publications in Armenian, Russian, German, English, and French. Founder and president of the Armenian Research Center in Humanities. Was a member of Armenian Parliament. Mr. Voskanyan is Parliament representative of Republic of Armenia to OSCE and was an ambassador of Armenian to Germany, 1998-2002. So please greet him as well. And Mr. Armen Ghazaryan. He is a researcher and lecturer. His main areas of interest include migration studies, European migration policies, communication studies, and populism at large. He is the head of the Migration Service of Armenia and adjunct lecturer of College of Humanities and Social Sciences at AUA. Greet him as well. And we're gonna have moderator. And today's moderator is gonna be Margarita. So greet him as well. So she's gonna host the whole process.
Thank you all for coming again. So today our discussion is about Velvet Revolution. As we said, it is what is now, what is next. That's why obviously my first question is to discuss what is happening now and to evaluate the current situation. All the panels will have up to 3 minutes of time. to express their thoughts and their evaluations on the matters of our political developments happening now. So I'll give the floor to Armen Ghazaryan, and then we'll go ahead with other panelists.
Currently we're in this phase of transition, obviously, which is the sort of a word that is quite frequently used now in our discussions, but this transition, I think, will be over by the new snap elections, parliamentary elections. I would like to concentrate rather on what will happen after that, because that is the crucial part of changes in our country. Because currently in this phase of transition, I would say that it is difficult to concentrate on policy making, and it is rather difficult to evaluate what is going on the policy level, and that is that makes the development of the country sort of stagger in one point. So the most important thing is to sort of consolidate the power, consolidate the state structures, and go on with the policy-making procedures. Because currently all long-term policies that are suggested are sort of stopped at some point in the government discussions. I'm sort of also saying things that I'm not supposed to say actually because of my position, but whatever. I think it is important that the public at large knows what is going on inside its own government. So the policy-making process is a bit slow, and I think that will improve after the snap elections of the parliament, because it will give more predictability to our political system, and it will give a bit of time for the policymakers to analyze their situation, the situation of their own field, and suggest future avenues of development. This is like in very concise terms, I would say.
I beg your pardon for speaking Armenian in this English-speaking environment. The subject is rather complicated, so I would like to be precise.
We'll have club members that will help those people who don't understand English. So, Armenian. Amen.
Well, I see at least 3 people in this room who doesn't speak Armenian.
Yeah. Everybody does that.
So I should make giving Okay, երբ պիտի հաշտանք, թե ինչ է տեղի ունեցել։ Ինձ թվում է մի քիչ ավելի հեռու գնանք եւ խոսենք այն մասին, որ խորհրդային միության փլուզումից հետո բոլոր այս հետխորհրդային երկրները հայտարարվեցին, այսպես կոչված countries in transition, անցումային երկրներ, որոնք պետք է անցնեն շուկայական տնտեսության եւ արևմտյան դեմոկրատիա։ Բայց մի 10 տարվա ընթացքում պարզվեց, որ նման բան տեղի չի ունեցել։ Եվ արդեն 2002 թվականին արևմտյան գիտնականները ստացին խոսել, որ ոչ մի transition այստեղ չկա։ Եվ խոսքը բոլորովին այլ բանի մասին է, որը պետք է ավելի շուտ արձանագրվի որպես ավտորիտարիզմ։ Բայց հետաքրքիրն ինչ է, որ այդ ավտորիտարիզմ ասածը բոլոր երկրներին համարյա իրենք անունը դրեցին կոնսոլիդացված ավտորիտարիզմ, բայց Հայաստանը մնաց առանձին, իրեն անվանում էին semi-consolidated authoritarianism։ Այսինքն ոնց որ ավելի դեմոկրատական կամ դեռևս չկոնսոլիդացված։ Մեր բացատրությունը այն է, որը մենք մեր կոնֆերանսի ժամանակ ուրեմն փորձեցինք տալ, որ Հայաստանում ձևավորվել է ոչ թե բուն ավտորիտար համակարգ, այլ ձևավորվել է այսպես կոչեցյալ այդ կրիմինալ օլիգարխիկ համակարգը, որ մի քիչ այլ համակարգ է։ 2003 թվականին, երբ որ այդ հարուստները մտան պարլամենտ, պարզվեց, որ պրեզիդենտը թույլ է։ Այսինքն այն, որ Քոչարյանն անընդհատ ասում է, որ ինքը միակ տղամարդն է, այնքան էլ այդպես չի։ Նա թույլ նախագահ էր, եւ դրա համար ստիպված էր եղել ուրեմն բաշխել իրավունքները քվոտաներով։ Այսինքն ամեն մեկին տալ մի բնակավար, ով ինչ է անելու եւ ինքն էլ մաքսիմում կարող էր այդպես վերահսկել թե ով ինչ է անում դատավորի դերում։ Առաջացավ այդ ուրեմն օլիգարխիկ համակարգը, որը հիմնականում զբաղված էր մեկը մյուսով, ինչպես են իրենք այդ բաները բաշխում։ Արդյունքում ամբողջ բնակչությունը դուրս է մնում այդ խաղից։ Երկու մաս է բաժանվում, մեկը նախագահը եւ իր օլիգարխները, մյուսը ուրեմն ժողովուրդը, որը այստեղ կա։ Եվ տվյալ պարագայում լիովին խախտվում է այսպես կոչված սոցիալական կոնտրակտը, այսինքն վերևները ներքևներին ոչ մի բան չեն տալիս։ Ինչ կարող են տալ երեք բան՝ սոցիալական երաշխիքներ, ուրեմն սեփականության անդերնմխելիություն եւ արտաքին պաշտպանություն։ Սոցիալական երաշխիքներ չկա, սեփականության պաշտպանություն չկա, նույնիսկ օլիգարխների մեջ, որտեղ անընդհատ վերապաշտվում է սեփականությունը, մնում է արտաքին անվտանգությունը։ Արտաքին անվտանգությունն 4 օրվա պատերազմը ապացուցեց, որ դա էլ չկա, եւ արդյունքում հասարակությունը ասեց հետեւյալը՝ տանել, եթե դուք մեզ ոչինչ չեք տալիս, ապա դուք մեզանից սпасելու ոչ մի բան չունեք։ Այսինքն այստեղ մի շատ հետաքրքիր բան է տեղի ունենում, հասարակությունը դադարում է ենթարկվել վերևներին։ Դա Վեբերը անվանում է տոտալ բոյկոտ։ Բոյկոտ։ Եվ եթե ասենք թե այդ բոյկոտի հարցն է, որ Փաշինյանի մեծագույն ծառայությունը այն էր, որ նա կարողացավ այդ բոյկոտը կազմակերպել։ Մինչև այդ եղել են իհարկե շարժումներ, այդ երիտասարդական շարժումները դրան բերել են։ Բայց ի վերջո այդ բոյկոտն է, որ հաղթեց։ Եվ կոմիկական էր, որ պարլամենտում նստածները դա չէին հասկանում։ Դե թող բերի, մենք մի հատ նայենք, ծրագիրը քննենք, տեսնենք լավ է, վատ է, այնինչ փողոցը իրենց ասում էր տղաներ կներեք, դուք չկաք։ Մենք ձեզ չենք ընկալում ընդհանրապես, դուք գոյություն չունեք նույնիսկ մեջ։ Սա է, որ բերեց հեղափոխության հաղթանակին։ Բայց դրանից հետո ինչ պետք է տեղի ունենա, սա արդեն երկրորդ հարցն է, եւ արդեն մենք այստեղ պիտի լինի ոչ թե what's now, այլ what's next։ Դրա համար ես կարծում եմ դրա մասին դեռևս կխոսենք։ Այս կարգ շնորհակալություն։
Okay, thank you again. So first of all, my prism from for all of my input here will be. So I studied both developing and developed countries for more than 10 years, and what I've seen in Armenia is in line, mostly in line with what has been happening for other countries. So for me, maybe for us, it's all of these issues like corruption, property rights, legal system, all these issues are unacceptable, which they should be. I view them more as a typical developing country issues that need to be solved. Which way you solve them, obviously you have, everyone has their own perspectives on these things. But from my point of view, all developing countries do suffer from these issues. I had a couple of points. Those points will also. What's next is probably will be more interesting. Right now, what I will say is there are many countries that are experiencing political disruptions, both in Europe, but also in U.S. and also in Armenia. One thing that I would like to see is this political disruption transpiring into a positive, future-oriented, reform-oriented economic disruption. At least in U.S., they had a political disruption that, in I would say most cases, is beneficial for their economy. Now we might argue about tariffs and so on, but at least whether there will be tariffs or not, there will be all of these issues will be renegotiated. I think the final outcome will be that way. My hope is, and not every time you have a political disruption, there's a very good economic disruption out of it. A lot of times, those two things don't go together. My hope for Armenia and my, I don't know, maybe expectation is that we will have a positive economic disruption. My viewpoint is no country, especially a small country like Armenia, can be politically, economically, or financially independent without a strong economy. And for 25 years, we've been too much politicking in this country and too little value or given or focus given on economic issues. And I'll continue afterwards. Thank you.
Let me see if I can keep up to the time. So, sorry, I seem to be getting a cold or something. When I was thinking about a question I was supposed to ask, what is now, I thought, how would I characterize Armenia? And if I were to pick 3 words, and the 3 words that I picked is hope, change, and challenge. And I think the first 2 are kind of obvious. People feel a lot of hope about what happened. And I think there is a good measure of change already, but the question is this sustainable? And then the one probably that needs to be talked about the most is challenge, because this is a very challenging situation we find ourselves in. the hope and the euphoria and the excitement, this is all great. But as a political scientist, when I look at the situation, and I think 80% of what I see is really positive, and we could talk about that, but I think someone needs to be talking about the difficult stuff. And I think that's what I'm going to try to do today. So don't think I'm negative, I'm just, as I say, this needs to be talked about. So what is a challenge? There's a number of them, of course. The biggest challenge that I think is easily identifiable is what in political science we call a minority government. And that's a government that does not have significant representation in the parliament. And this is a challenge because that makes it difficult for the government to push its agenda forward. So if you don't have, and this is not a nonsense, this is not an unknown situation. There are minority governments. They particularly often happen in Scandinavia, and they happen because for whatever reasons there is no single big political force, and then the bigger players kind of allow the smaller player to go ahead. And that's exactly what's been happening in Armenia, right? I mean, we arrived at that situation for a peculiar trajectory, and so what does that mean? That means that the prime minister has to compromise, and he doesn't like that, obviously. And what we saw in early October got a lot of people rattled up, but for me as a political scientist, it was actually a beautiful process, because you have a parliament that is strong enough to fight back and try to defend its rights. And then you had a prime minister who cannot control the parliament, he cannot bully the parliament into doing things. And so it has to rely on the street. Yeah, and that's his only backup. And this is great, again, because this is democracy. You have the right to take it to the streets and defend your interests. But is that sustainable? And how long can you do it? And I have to say, I'm super skeptical of this slogan that Armenia has reinvented Greek democracy. And I think in the 21st, maybe we'll make it work. But I find it very hard to imagine how in the 21st century, that's my time up. And I think that's exactly where I'm going to stop. How can you do it? Technology. So how do you do it? How do you govern a country from a street? How do you use a democratic system that existed 2,000 years ago in a tiny city, Athens, where you could physically bring every single citizen into the street and say, guys, decide now by raising your hands or throwing this. How can we? Maybe we can innovate, but I'm very skeptical of that. So, and that's to the point that's why we need elections, but that's the next question. Yeah, what next? So I think we have a very interesting, but also very challenging and volatile situation right now, and things can deteriorate pretty quickly.
Thank you, by the way, to the Speak Up Club for this invitation. It's a really wonderful initiative. What is now? For me, what is now is you. That's what's now. And I think that that's an incredibly important thing that you should not be forgetting. I think we're understandably, there are a lot of concerns, there are a lot of questions, there's a lot of maybe anxiety. But for me, at least, I think this now is a very important moment. Something miraculous has happened in this country. And it's happened because of you and hundreds of thousands of others. So I think we have to be careful not to gloss over that. Is it euphoristic? Is it this? Of course it is, because something completely unprecedented happened here after 30 years. So I think that for me, at least, what's now is a combination of things. One, people that were part of this movement not forget what they've accomplished and kind of be in that moment, not allow themselves to be caught off guard with some of the obvious kind of day-to-day that also has to happen, right? So there's basically those are two things that are going to happen at the same time. There is a certain euphoria, there's a certain, people need to feel, they do feel a sense of pride and joy and fulfillment in what they've accomplished. But I think along with that comes boring, everyday hard work. I mean, that's what governance is. It can't just be being out in the streets and kind of that part of the revolution is one thing. But then there's the everyday work that everybody has to do to see it through, and to get ahead of any possible complications or any possible something that could derail something that so many hundreds of thousands of people put themselves on the line for. So I think for me those are two things. I think on the one hand, what's now is this incredible moment that I think we should be careful not to just kind of gloss over. But number two is work. It's vigilance. It's people now getting down to that tedious work of governance, of continuing to be active participants in a civic society, in whatever capacity that is. For me personally, I think being the only person here, I guess maybe who's not an Armenian citizen, my perspective also is that for me now it's about what does this mean in the diaspora. So I think for me, I think there's a very interesting conversation going on among diasporans. And I think now it's about what impact is this revolution going to have in the diaspora, which itself needs also a kind of revolution.
Thank you. So we want to make this really a discussion, so we want to engage everyone here. That's why now we are doing a Q&A session. We have pre-prepared questions for our panelists. These are the concerns that our club members had, a question they wanted to ask. But now it is open for you. If you want to ask a question, raise your hand. We'll bring a microphone or come to the microphone. Come to the microphones and ask your questions. Any questions? About, yes, global travel.
Anything. About the revolution, just general, whatever it is. Yeah. Please come over.
So, come to the microphone.
Now, as youth or someone we are preparing for the elections, upcoming elections. When we are looking who are going to, predict which parties are going to be in the parliament in the future, we see that it's going, we are not sure. We have completely destroyed the Republican Party. We have a party which has only history but is not going to have much votes, the Hayeda. And no one, I will not even talk about the prosperous one. Who do you think is going to be that? In Armenia we have a really good word which is Zaspanak. I think in all countries it doesn't matter how really good is the ruling party now for us, but in any case we need to have someone in parliament who is always going to stretch the strings, and if our, let's say the KP is always, it's not 100% sure that KP is going to make only good things. In some cases, practically, KP might choose also some bad stuff. So who is, in your opinion, who is going to be that Zaspanak, not opposition, the one who is always going to keep the KP very, under pressure in parliament?
Okay, is there any specific person who are you asking the question, or just everyone? Okay.
Just.
Thank you. Could you please also mention your name?
Harutsun, I am third year student, business student.
Okay. Thank you.
Is it okay if I take the first lance? I think that's a great question. One thing I think for me that in a lot of these discussions, I always feel like I have to remind both myself and sometimes people that I talk to about this, that, if we're calling this a revolution, then I think we have to remember what revolution means, I think that sometimes it seems like a lot of people want their cake and to eat it too. They want there to be this revolution, but we also want immediate checks and balances. We also want immediate law and order. A revolution means that something that was considered illegitimate and often fraudulent was toppled and replaced. usually what happens is sometimes that revolution by default does become a kind of even unchecked majority for a while. I'm not saying that's a good thing. I'm just trying to say I think sometimes we have to just remember that if this many people wanted this to happen, then some of that's what comes next, is that sometimes one party has a majority for a while. I think those are very important questions, but for me what that means is not so much about what's happening in Parliament. That means, that's what I was saying about vigilance. Just like people went out for 10 days or 11 days and they toppled a system after 30 years, those people have to continue. In other words, even if people are completely pro the new government, whatever, no one's perfect. No one is above the law. No one is above a certain code of ethics and a certain understanding of governance. So those very same people that were out on the streets, then it's everyone's job to be vigilant for that new government. So I think sometimes, in these conversations, I think we have to remind ourselves that, well, if it's a revolution, then revolutions are often sometimes, I think we're actually very fortunate that this revolution was incredibly soft and incredibly lawful, as far as I can tell. So I think that we have to be a little bit careful about checks and balances when we talk about checks and balances, because of checks and balances from whom, right? If a revolution is supplanting that which it considers to be mostly very problematic and perhaps illegitimate, then that's a question. It's not a perfect situation, but that's kind of the nature sometimes of a revolution. So that's just my perspective.
Thank you. Yeah, I forgot to mention that please take no more than 2 minutes to answer questions.
Sorry.
Yeah, everyone can answer, yes. Yes.
Ես ուզում եմ ասել, որ իսկապես այստեղ շատ լուրջ պրոբլեմ կա, եւ երևի մենք իհարկե չենք ստանա այդ օպոզիցիան։ Այդ զսպող ուժը մենք իհարկե պարլամենտում չենք ստանա։ Ես կուզեի, որ ստանայինք, բայց զարմանալով ես ասեմ, ես կուզենայի, որ դա լիներ Գագիկ Սարոկյանի թիմը։ Բացատրեմ ինչու, եթե հատուկ համակրանք չեմ ունեցել, բայց տեսեք որ մեր խնդիրը։ Ուրեմն մենք կոտրել ենք, ոչնչացրել ենք այդ հասարակական պայմանագիրը։ Այսինքն հասարակությունը մեկը մյուսի հետ կապված չի։ Հիմա մարդիկ ասում են անարդար է եղել, այսքան տարի մեզ թալանել են, այսքան տարի մեզանից տարել են, հիմա ինչ է պետք անել։ Պետք է հարձակվել վրաները եւ խլել այդ ամենը եւ տալ մեզ։ Բայց եթե այդպես անենք, ուրեմն բիզնեսը ուղղակի կփախչի, ոչ ոք չի մնա Հայաստանում եւ այդ իրենք էլ ոչ մի բան չեն տա։ Հետեւաբար որն է լուծումը այստեղ։ Լուծումը այն է, որպեսզի մենք կարողանանք այդ այսպես կոչված օլիգարխներին ներգրավել որոշակի համաձայնության դաշտի մեջ։ Լավ, 20 տարի թալանել ես, կրիմինալ չես, բայց կարգը այնպես է եղել, որ դու կարողացել ես օգտվել եւ հարստանալ ուրիշների հաշվին։ Բարի եղի առաջիկա 20 տարիներ քո ունեցվածքից, որը չեք խլում, քո ունեցվածքից մի մասը դուր հասարակության ֆոնդերը ստեղծեք, սոցիալական ֆոնդերը ստեղծեք, պարտադիր վճարումներով եւ մասնակցեք հասարակության բարգավաճման։ Այլապես դες համար ավելի վատ կլինի, որովհետեւ դες կջարդեն, կխլեն, պետք չի դա անել։ Հետևաբար ովքեր են մեզ պետք, բացի հեղափոխական հիմնական ուժից, մեզ պետք են օլիգարխներ, որոնց հետ հնարավոր է գոնե պայմանավորվել։ Հիմա այդ Գագիկ Ծառուկյանի խումբը իմ տպավորությամբ այն օլիգարխների թվին է պատկանում, որի հետ գոնե կարելի է պայմանավորվել եւ պարտադրել մասը տվեք, որ ամբողջը չկորցնեք։ Բայց այս ասում եմ տեսականորեն, որովհետեւ ես վստահ եմ, որ այս ընտրությունների ժամանակ որևէ նման ուժ չի լինելու։ Իհարկե լինելու է հիմնականում հեղափոխական ուժերը, իրենք կազմելու են այսպես մեծ մի ամբողջականություն, մենք չենք ունենալու այդ checks and balances, չենք ունենալու իրականում, բայց դա պետք է ունենալ, որովհետև օրինակ, ասենք, կառավարությունը բերելու է ծրագիր, զուտ տնտեսական ծրագիր, ենթադրենք խիստ լիբերալ ծրագիր։ Ես վախենում եմ այդպես է լինելու է, որովհետև ես լսում եմ իրենց խորհրդականներին։ Հարց է առաջանում, իսկ այն ճնշված ժողովուրդը, որ այն ժամանակ սոված է եղել, հիմա կասի, բայց ես բերել եք բայես ինչ ան։ Ուրեմն մեկը պետք է լինի, որ այդ բաները պաշտպանի։ Այսօր չկա եւ չի լինել։ Այսինքն մենք ստանալու ենք միանշանակ պարլամենտ, որը լավ է, նորմալ է, որովհետև ուրիշ բան չունենք։ Եվ կողքից երևի ձևավորվելու են նոր կուսակցություններ, որոնք ցավոք սրտի, այո, պարլամենտից դուրս են մնալու։ Եթե ձևավորվեցին։ Մի քանի տարի հետո երևի իրենք փորձեն մի բան անել, ես չգիտեմ, առայժմ հասկանում։
Thank you. Just two short disclaimers until I get to the answer, and don't take it out of my time, please. So, first, I forgot to do it when I started to speak up. Yes, I'm a state official now, but here I'm not in the capacity of a state official, rather an academic and political scientist with my background. And secondly, I'm no party member, so that also please take into account. So the first thing that I wanted to say is what we have talked during your conference, Mr. Voskanyan, that you organized here. I presented a topic how our political system was archaic, how it was out of date from the realities of the society that we had at the time. And there were a few components of that of the system being archaic. The first was the structural problem, because we had done this transfer from the semi-presidential system to the parliamentary system, and if you pay attention, only 5 countries in the post-Soviet sphere have done this transition: Georgia, Ukraine, Moldova, Armenia, and Kyrgyzstan. The only country that had revolution in the Central Asia, by the way, Kyrgyzstan. And all these countries. So there is a specific trend going on in the post-Soviet sphere, which means the countries where you don't have resource-based authoritarianism, which is where the authoritarianism is not consolidated, you have these transfers to the parliamentary system, because there are multiple actors who can influence the society. And the second thing is the system was archaic with its ideology, because the ideology of that system was sort of a weird mixed child of conservatism with, I would say, with polluted religiosity. If I may coin a phrase, I don't know whether such a phrase exists. So, and what the trend is, actually, if you follow all 2000s and 2010s in Armenia, what are the civic protests about? They are about public spaces, they are about public utilities, they are something about public, which is that we are moving in this wave of new left. Actually, in all the countries of the post-Soviet space, in all the 5 countries I mentioned, there is this new seed of the new left. And this also was exemplary during the Velvet Revolution days. First time in our history, from the podium, we had a feminist speech. Who remembers Maria Karapetyan saying, "Hi, my sisters," whatever, you know? These are the things that if we fail to notice, we will fail to notice this thing that we are dealing with the new left, actually. And what you are saying, yes, I'm sure that we will not have a consolidated left now, because I'm sure that the program of the government will be liberal, because even unconsciously the leading party now is liberal. But in 1 or 2 election cycles, if nothing dramatic happens, I hope that we will have a sort of leftist or social democratic party emerge, because at least the social democratic discourse is out there. Nothing structural yet, but the discourse is out there. Thank you.
Okay, if we don't have questions, I have a question. Then, yeah, yes.
I would like to ask, as first, it's not a question but more a request, if you could translate the first intervention in Armenian, since I don't speak it as an Italian and I'm a student here. And then I would like to have a deeper insight about the situation and the desire of more Greek democracy, and what threats and challenges it poses, and how these can be overcome and dealt with, since also in my country there is a shared desire, especially from our last elections, that is similar to the Armenian one. That's it.
I feel like the question was not that clear. Could you please repeat once again?
I think the question was to me when I said I'm skeptical about this Greek
Yes.
democracy idea. Yeah,
Yes.
sure. Oh, sure. So, there is. Where do I start? So when all these meetings in the square were happening, where 100,000 people gathered, 200,000 people gathered, I think that's where it was born. This idea that even some of my colleague political scientists have actually even published on that already, that Armenia is reinventing the ancient Greek direct democracy. And I think that's nonsense, I'm sorry. I mean, if you study democracy, participatory democracy that engages citizens, I'm all for it. But to say that even 200,000 people on the streets, which is a big number, to say that this is all Armenian, I know this is, some people are going to hate me for that, but what do I care? That's not the entire Armenian people. There's at least another 200,000 people that are at home now and don't want to be part of this. Right? And so that's populist and that's nonsense. To call this, I mean, understand me, I study democracy and protests and I love them. But that doesn't mean that this is an ancient Greek democratic thing where in Athens we were like, how many citizens? 500? I mean, 6,000, okay. Male citizens, 6,000 people who could vote. Okay, 6,000. But 6,000, you can bring them together in one square and give them these colored stones and white and black and say, whoever's in favor, throw the white stone in the left urn and whoever. That's how Greeks did it. And to say that we now in Armenia have reinvented Greek democracy, these 200,000 people, if you're in favor of Pashinyan, raise your hands, that's populism, And I'm deeply skeptical of that, and I'm worried that some serious political analysts glorify this as a possible way to govern a country, because I think protests are beautiful, people have the right, but you have to know where the limits of that is, and that is not a way to govern a country. You can't gather 200,000 people in the streets every time and say, here's my proposal, let's vote. I mean, there are, maybe Armenians and Nikol Pashinyan will prove me wrong once again. That would be beautiful. Maybe we will innovate. But I think one needs to be serious about what is participatory democracy and what is realistic in the 21st century, and never lose sight of the fact that not everybody was out there in the streets. And we will see these people. So I don't like predictions about what party will make it to the parliament, but I think maybe not now, but at some point you will start seeing these people who would say, well, actually this party, this movement, this revolution doesn't really represent me. They've just been, they're silent for a while because you don't want to swim against the current. So that was the idea. Like, this is, it's a protest, but it's not a democracy.
Are there any other panelists who would like to answer to the question? Can I ask my question?
Let's ask a question.
Okay.
Okay, hello everyone. My name is Arto Vaun. I'm sophomore here at AOA. I want to thank AOA Speak Up Club for putting this wonderful initiative together, and our speakers for sharing their views. And I have a question for Mr. Avetian and the representative of the government. And okay. So my question is basically, during past 25 years, the potential of this country, like 70-80% now is concentrated on some hands which we call Hanrapetagans. So when we have new government, I guess we need to reallocate that resource into some other hands, right? And I want to understand how do you imagine, like, what is going to happen? Are they going to raise new oligarchs, or there is going to happen what? Because I get some impulses that I don't know, people who are surrounding these new Naharars and Marspets, they are starting new businesses, and their businesses grows really fast. I noticed that. I want to understand what is going to happen. Are we going to have the same system, or there is no, I don't know, ideas or?
Should I start?
Yes.
Okay. I would have expected you to be tired of my answering your questions in class, but I would. Okay, thank you, Arthur. This is how I view it. First of all, as one of my, in my academic career, one of my favorite teachers, plenty of experience, he told me all power corrupts. Okay, no matter who you give power to, it corrupts. With time, that's the clause that you need to have. So with time, all power corrupts. I think I trust these people that are sincere, trustable enough, good morals. I think ideologically, I kind of fit in their what they're representing. So I would give them I would give them a couple of years. I know that it's not optimal to have a parliament that is, I don't know, whatever we had in the Yerevan city elections. But even that, I think a couple of years, we should give them time. Because what I see, like, from an economic point of view, we have a lot of risks, not Armenian related, but internationally related. And I think there are risks of volatility, disturbances economically, and trade, and so on and so forth. And I think a lot of the stuff that we have accumulated previously, all the problems we accumulated previously during these 25 years, I kind of grouped them all together because I haven't seen many reforms since 1990s. So if there's going to be a lot of turbulence, volatility, all of these things that have been accumulated, external debt, internal debt, all of these issues will fall, unfortunately, on this government. Which means they will have to do a lot of very difficult things. Which means a lot of people will be very, very unpleasantly surprised that a lot of things will be maybe even harder than it were previously. This is not their problem, this is the problem of accumulation. But in politics, as well as in any experience in your life, luck, circumstance is a very important issue. So I would give them time. I think their morals are in place for them not to lose sight of what they have changed, and I think there will be some kind of restrictions morally, so there are no new businesses that are close to them. So I expect them to do for a couple of years at least. So that's my answer to one thing. Regarding the opposition, I think media does an appreciatively important role as an opposition. I think if you ask any politicians, they check the news sites every day, 50 times, every single one of them. Okay, so media will have a very, very important role to play as opposition in this interim period. I think that's my. Was that the answer to your questions, or was there anything else? That was it.
Partially. I'm more interested, like, these resources must be relocated.
Yeah.
I want to understand what are the better ways.
Okay. I'll answer that quickly too. So we need to have a pro-business government. Pro-business government means that you have a very favorable business environment, economic environment for FDI, for domestic investment. Unfortunately, pro-business government means you allocate more profits and less wages, less employee compensation. But that's the reality. You want to make this attractive, you want to bring business, you need to pay the profit and the capital that comes into Armenia. Good, bad, we can talk about Scandinavia 70 years, not 70 years, maybe 20, 30 years from now. But this government's orientation, maybe some call liberal, the stuff that's called Nerarakan, that is not capitalist per se. I view it most socialist oriented than capitalist oriented. So I'm not sure they're going to be. I'm not yet sure how to classify the economic policy. So from that sense, giving profits to business is important to make it attractive. From the other sense, obviously, we want to have a socially fair society. Can we do it? Can a developing country do that initially from the beginning? I'm very doubtful of that, because you cannot. You need to be rich to be able to do socialism. Okay, as Sweden, there's Norway, there's Finland. If you start poor, that's kind of very difficult to do.
Thank you.
Yeah. Obviously, you didn't hear my first disclaimer, because, and as a government official, I'm responsible for migration issues. So if you ask me where to allocate the resources, I would give them to refugees. Okay, so this is the first part. And secondly, if we're talking in the analytical terms rather than political, I think for the social contract that Mr. Voskanyan touched upon, which is crucial for the upcoming years in this country, for the social contract to be stable, the allocation, mere redistribution of wealth is absolutely something wrong to do. And the reallocation of wealth through social funds or this kind of instruments that we have the precedents in the world history, that would be something that would also contribute to having this social contract. Otherwise, these divisions in the society will remain, and at some point in life, they will erupt again.
Thank you.
Thank you for the interesting discussion. I'm Arto Vaun, a alumni. So here's the question, how do you see this velvet revolution in a geopolitical context? Because Nikol Pashinyan said that we're not pro-Russian, we're not pro-Western, we're pro-Armenian, but is it possible to be pro-Armenian and not to take any orientation? And just second question too, how do you see this populism? Because I see that there's a tremendous amount of populism, and when I see what Nikol Pashinyan does, the first thing that comes into my mind is, come on. I mean, it's like he's fooling me as a citizen, because, okay, riding bicycle is something cool, but you can't take country from the swamp that is in right now to a higher level with just riding a bicycle and just saying hello to people. Just these two questions, and I would like to hear from Mr. Voskanyan and Mr. Ghazaryan. Thank you.
Ուրեմն տեսեք, իսկապես պրոբլեմ կա հետևյալ ձևով։ Ինքը հեղափոխությունը եւ նաեւ պարոն Փաշինյանը մշտապես ասում էին, որ իրենք չեն վերանայելու մեր հարաբերությունները, պահպանելու են լավ հարաբերություններ Ռուսաստանի հետ, Եվրասիական միության հետ, եւ դա իսկապես այդպես էր, դա իրականություն է։ Կասկածը, որը կար, այն էր, որ իրեք ինչ, դուք կարող եք իհարկե ցանկանալ գեոպոլիտիկ իմաստով այդ հարաբերությունները պահպանել, բայց միևնույն ժամանակ, եթե դուք ուզում եք կառուցել մեկ այլ հասարակություն, որը ներսից այլ սկզբունքների վրա է հենված, որ իսկապես ասենք թե ժողովրդավարական է, որ նույնիսկ իրեն թույլ է տալիս նախկին նախագահի վերաբերյալ ունենալ հավակնություններ նրան դատելու, ապա դուք չեք տեղավորվում այդ համակարգի մեջ։ Այդ դեպքում դուք ինչ պետք է անեք, սա էր պրոբլեմը, որովհետև իրականության մեջ իսկապես մեր հարաբերությունները իսկապես հիմնված են Ռուսաստանի հետ շատ ջերմ կապերի վրա։ Այս վերջին ժամանակները ես եկան եզրակացության, որ սա այնքան էլ վտանգավոր չի, որովհետև այն ձևը, որով այսօր կներեք ես մի քիչ բաց եմ խոսում, այն ձևը, որով իշխանությունները այսօր հարաբերվում են հասարակության հետ, այնքան էլ օտար չէ այն ձևին, որով հարաբերվում են նաև մյուս երկրներում։ Տեսեք, բերեմ մի այսպես համարձակ օրինակ։ Ինչ է, ասենք Նիկոլ Փաշինյանի այդ բաները, Facebook-յան սեսիաները։ Այսինքն ինքը խոսում է, մի կողմից դուք ունեք ուղիղ կոնտակտ ժողովրդի հետ, իրեն հարցեր են տալիս, բայց մյուս կողմից համաձայն եք, որ այդ կոնտակտը միակողմանի է, այսինքն ես ասում եմ, դուք լսում եք, ի վերջո դա է։ Այս իմաստով դա շատ արմատական տարբերություն չունի, ասենք ռուսական տրադիցիայի հետ, որտեղ նախագահը ոնց է ասում, ուղիղ գիծ հասարակության ինքն ասում է, իրեն հարցեր են տալիս, ինքը պատասխանում է, իրեն լսում է։ Այս իմաստով այդքան օտարությունը մեջ չի, եւ դա բնական է, դա ոչ թե Փաշինյանի ցանկությունն է, դա ոչ թե ուրիշների ցանկությունն է, այդ է մեր երկիրը։ Մենք ասացինք, իսկապես ասվեց եւ շատ կարեւոր բան ասվեց, որ կուսակցական ուրեմն համակարգը ջախջախված է։ Մենք չունենք կուսակցություն։ Ես լիովին համաձայն եմ, որ գուցե երկու լեգիսլատուրայից հետո մի բան ձևավորվի, այսօր մենք դա չունենք։ Այսօր ուզես թե չուզես, պետք է որոշակի ավտորիտար գծեր լինեն։ Եվ այդ գծերը պետք է լինեն, եւ նրանք կան, նրանք լինելու են, ես համաձայն եմ նաև, որ մի 2 տարի դեռևս մենք հույս ունենք, այլ բան է, որ ես մի բան չհասկացա, 2 տարի հետո մենք ինչ ենք անել, եթե պարլամենտը 4 տարով է ընտրել։
I totally agree with everything Mr. Voskanyan said, except one thing. The level of accountability in this government is not comparable with the level of accountability in Russian government, Kazakh government, Kyrgyz government, or any other country in terms of merely accountability. Because when you say that there is direct speech from the ruler to the ruled, there is also this reverse process that this government really tries to frequently address what the impulses come from the people. I don't like the phrase, from the society, let's say. And the second question was
the amount of the
populism. Yes. Something which Ms. Paturyan called participatory democracy, with the engagement of large masses in the political process. Populism is sort of inevitable, and in this case also we have to pay attention to the international trend, and international trend is towards that populism. But I want to stress that populism is now very active in both sides of the ideological divide, if we take it the European way, right and left. And what gives me hope, actually, without being any leftist of my own, these seeds of leftist discourse actually give me hope that this populism will not turn into nationalist populism, again with some cover of religiosity, hopefully.
I feel like I can ask one. Okay. I wanted to talk about the 17 meeting protest, and a couple of questions by Pashinyan were raised. In terms of investment, Mr. Avetian talked about inclusive economy, and it said it is not pro-business, and Pashinyan also said it should be pro-business, and that's why it was kind of different. And he talked about investment, he talked also about repatriation, and I'm not sure whether there are people coming back to Armenia and starting living here, buying houses. And also at the end of the meeting, he also recited his own poem about Imkaila. And I feel like in August, Mr. Vaun talked about it, and I remembered it very, very well. And I would like you to start and talk about what it meant, why the poetry and the music, how it affected the whole process. Could you please?
That's a really interesting question. I think that I'm trying to I want to be really quick because I don't want you to get mad. But I think I would maybe connect it to what Samson said. I think, just like an economy is super important for the health of a nation. You can't just only have the economy without culture. So just like we want there to be manufacturing, we want there to be jobs, we want there to be a great economy, there has to be a production of new and innovative culture. I found it, and I think many people found it incredibly moving. Not just when the Prime Minister recites poetry, but all these slogans in the crowds, people playing word games, coming up with their own slogans, their own designs, songs, chants. I think that, we can call that populism, we can call it whatever we want, but I think that at the end of the day, in this day and age, I find it very frightening and incredibly unhealthy that we get so nervous by any kind of collectivism. I don't really care what we call that. I think that that tells you how far we've come in some ways, where we've kind of forgotten our own humanity. We are human beings at the end of the day. And there is something to be said for reconnecting to each other as a community of not just Armenians, as just human beings. We happen to live in Armenia, but I would be saying the same thing wherever. I would love to go back to Boston and say it to my countrymen in Boston right now. So I think that the use of poetry, I think, is incredibly powerful, because what poetry tries to do is what nothing else can do. Poetry tries, with very few words, to say that which we find to be impossible to say. That's why there's never an ending of love poems. There's not an ending of poems about grief or death or loss, right? Because we can never find the right words exactly to say what we feel. To have leadership after all these years, to have someone get on the stage who wants to lead a country and to recite poetry of all things, and not recite that poetry in a way, and maybe, folks can correct me if I'm wrong here, but at least from my perspective, as a little bit of a, outsider, half outsider, in a way that is not some kind of dogmatic, kind of Soviet sounding, where we're all going to applaud and he's going to, where people are, you could see people on the stage crying, you're crying as you're watching it, and that might all feel silly. But I think the fact that it even makes us feel silly, it to me is a sign both of the importance of that, to reconnect to our own humanity. I think that in Armenia, like a lot of, and unfortunately now in the United States, I think more and more and more when people are living under tremendous socioeconomic injustice, there's a tremendous amount of violence that's going on there. It's not violence like you're being physically beaten every day. But if you're constantly underpaid, if you're constantly feeling like your just sense of dignity and pride as a human being is being eroded, then there's nothing more powerful to reconnect to that than art. And if you have a leader, whether it's Nikol Pashinyan or anyone else, who reconnects with people through just this very, very primordial thread, right? Art is something that connects us for thousands and thousands of years. I think that's been an incredibly refreshing and I think very healthy development.
Now, also I wanted Ms. Paturyan to talk about this first fair elections, but I have heard, I should recite Edmond Marukian, who said, it feels like the government is using Robert Kochayan and Serge Sargsyan as a resource to get more votes, because at the end it became a referendum for, he is from the Elk Alliance, and why would he say something that is not pro-revolution or something like that?
Why would he? That's exactly back to your point. We have no opposition. I think we have an opposition. I think the Yelk Alliance has split. It's pretty clear by now, and that's a good thing. If there's any criticism towards Nikol Pashinyan, then that credible criticism, it's most likely going to come from his Yelk folks, and that's a good thing. Don't take it like a, oh my God, this is horrible, they're fighting. That's politics, man. Why wouldn't he do that? I bring this example to my students all the time. When you talk about business, you don't make faces like, oh, all these businessmen want is to earn money. But when we talk about politics, and politics is about power, then suddenly all these crooked politicians, all they care about is power. Well, that's the lifeblood of politics. So of course, if you have credible criticism that's going to make you look smart, you use it. Why exactly? I don't know. I don't like conspiracy theories. I don't know what one. But I like that criticism. I like the fact that there are people in his inner circle that can stand up to him. I think without that, we're going to be lost. We're going to lose all the gains that we have, because exactly power corrupts. So yeah, I think you have a pretty good analysis. Do you want me to say, yeah, that's a good analysis, or what? Yeah, but again, I don't believe in conspiracy theories. I don't think they used that. I think it just coincided that this whole thing with Kocharyan came up and that boosted the vote for Nikol Pashinyan. I don't think they architected. I don't think that was on purpose, but they used it. And again, good for them. That's smart.
Thank you. So, yes, we have a question.
Okay, thank you. My question is for Professor Avetian. So, do you think that Armenia should now have one exact economic ideology? I just heard an opinion that if, for example, government chooses to have capitalism as an ideology, they will help the monopolies to grow more. So, what do you think about it?
Okay, thank you. So I did a piece of research for maybe 1.5, 2 years now on Armenia on the past 25 years. It will be out as a book by the end of the year, hopefully. And the whole point is to understand what can Armenia do from this point on. And unfortunately, as again, there's so many things that have been accumulated, so the path onward, the positive path is very narrow. And the path that is narrow implies that you have to do a lot of investment in education fairly rapidly. From a political point of view, you might know that political cycles, education, all of that stuff, education is not so popular with politicians. It's not their choosing. It's not the group that has high participation in elections. It's not that makes a lot of. In our case, it's a bit more. It's more possible, but generally we have a very narrow path. And generally, I would like them to do a lot of education because the past 25 years have shown that there are very few sectors that actually have a lot of potential, and you have to invest in those sectors, and that's through education. We can compete by having low, like developing countries compete by having low labor costs. In our case, I think it will be a false strategy. So if you want to give, you have to, in our case, I think, compete by having higher value add labor. If we can do that, that's much better. But unfortunately, what I've seen for the last 25 years is the blame is, okay, Povos Povosyan did this, it didn't work, it's because of Povos Povosyan, it's not because of the policy that Povos Povosyan did. And my fear is we're going to do exactly the same, rehearse the same thing, and blame for the other things that the previous people have done and say, okay, it didn't work because these people did it. Now we're going to try it again, and in our case it's going to work. I'm pretty sure it's not going to work. A lot of the things that have been on the table, unfortunately, if they come on the table again, they will not work again. So hopefully, they're taking time, which is good to analyze all these issues, but the path is narrow. I try to be as helpful to the government as possible. But that's my answer to it. But again, the path is narrow, and you have to be very, very specific with what you do with economic policy.
Okay. I have two more questions. One for Mr. Voskanyan, one for Mr. Ghazaryan. And I would like Mr. Voskanyan to talk about the revolution. The revolution started with mottos of rejecting, of being against someone, a person, or a political system, an alliance maybe. But then it turned to be a revolution of peace and love and tolerance. And when the mayor election started, I remember there was a big boom about Haig Mauritian saying separating people to black and white. And I would like you more elaborate how could it happen.
Այստեղ արդեն ասվեց, եւ շատ ճիշտ ասվեց, որ փաստորեն ինչ որտեղ այդ հակադրությունը սևի եւ սպիտակի օգտագործվեց, որպեսզի ուրեմն ընտրություններում ավելի շատ ձայնա։ Ես դա հասկանում եմ, իսկապես ճիշտ է, որ քաղաքական գործիչը իշխանության է ձգտում եւ նա իրավունք ունի այդ հարցադրումները այդպես օգտագործել։ Մյուս կողմից սակայն գիտեք, ինձ համար շատ ցանկալի կլիներ, որպեսզի լիներ դեբատ։ Բանն այն է, որ դեբատները, ուրեմն Հայաստանում, այն գլխից չեն եղել։ Ուղղակի ես ձեզ հիշեցնեմ, քանի որ մի քիչ ձեզանից ավելի շատ եմ ապրել։ Ուրեմն առաջինը, ցավոք սրտի ես դա ասում եմ, որտեղ դա իմ գործընկերն է եղել, առաջինը դեբատներից հրաժարվեց Լևոն Տեր-Պետրոսյանը։ Առաջին նախագահական ընտրությունների ժամանակ, երբ որ հաստատ տրվեց, որ պետք է քաղաքական գործիչները հավաքվեն, ովքեր որ հավակնում են պրեզիդենտության իրար հետ բանակցեն, ասաց դուք ով եք, որ ես այսպես խոսեմ, կոպիտ եմ խոսում, բայց մոտավորապես այդպես էր։ Եվ դրանից հետո ոչ մի դեպքում, ոչ մի ընտրության ժամանակ դեբատ չի եղել։ Մի անգամ է եղել դեբատ տարօրինակ ձևով, երբ որ ուրեմն Քոչարյանը նկատելով, որ իր դիրքերը այնքան էլ ուժեղ չեն, համաձայնեց գնալ դեբատների, բայց իր դիմացը կանգնած էր Ստեփան Դեմիրճյանը, Քարեն Դեմիրճյանի որդին, որը մենք գիտենք, որ փորձված գործիչ չէր։ Եվ Քոչարյանը հմտորեն նրան ներքաշեց տնտեսական դաշտը, որին նա պատրաստ չէր, եւ ջախջախեց։ Դրանից հետո նորից դեբատ չի եղել։ Հիմա իմ ամբողջ հույսը այն էր, որ դեբատ լինելու է, որտեղ ես հասկանում եմ, որ քաղաքական գործիչը իրավունք ունի օգտագործելու այդ ամենի իր նպատակների համար, բայց չէ որ հեղափոխության իմաստը որն է։ Տղեկ, ամեն ինչ վերցել եք ձեր բուռը, մենք ոչ մի բան ենք, հիմա մենք եկել ենք ասելու, որ չէ, բոլորը ինչ որ բան են։ Եթե մենք ասում ենք բոլորը ինչ որ բան են, ուրեմն պետք է իրար հետ խոսենք։ Եվ այդ նույն Երևանի ընտրությունների ժամանակ, երբ որ մենք ասում ենք աղբահանություն, երբ որ մենք ասում ենք տրանսպորտ եւ այլն, բոլորն էլ մի բան են ասում, որ ես կարող եմ ընտրել։ Ես կարող եմ ընտրել, եթե մարդն ասի ինչպես է ինքը նախատեսում դա անել։ Այն ժամանակ, երբ որ դեռևս չէր հնչել այդ խոսքը, թե տրանսպորտը պետք է թանկանա, թե չէ, միանգամից առաջին բանը, որ ինձ անհանգստացնում էր, հետևյալն է։ Եթե ես ասում եմ, պետք է մարշրուտկաները փոխեմ ավտոբուսներով, հարց է առաջանում, ավտոբուսների գինը գիտեմ։ Ես այդ ժամանակ աշխատում էի արտգործ նախարարությունում, մենք աշխատել ենք չինացիների հետ, բերել ենք այդ 150 ուրեմն ավտոբուսները որպես չինացիների նվեր, գոնե մոտարապես գիտենք, թե մի հատ ավտոբուսը ինչ արժի։ Այսինքն, եթե դու բերում ես ավտոբուսներ, ասում ես, որ դու գիտես, թե գինն ինչ է, ասում ես, թե այդ գումարը որտեղից ես բերելու, կամ հետո որ փչանան ինչով ես սարքելու, եթե դու դա չես ասում եւ դիմացինի հետ չես դնում մրցակցության քո գաղափարներ, ես ոնց ընտրեմ։ Հետևաբար այստեղ մենք ունենք նույն խնդրումը, մենք ունենք ազատ ընտրություններ, մենք ունենք թափանցիկ ընտրություններ, բայց որտեղի իրականում մենք ունենանք ընտրություններ, պետք է ունենանք բովանդակային ընտրություններ։ Բովանդակային ընտրությունները մենք պետք է ճանաչենք մարդկանց մենք չենք ճանաչում։ Դրա համար իհարկե ես կարծում եմ, որ այս պահին մենք դեռևս առաջին քայլն ենք անում, որը ինչպես իմ լավ բարեկամ Մոհամեդ Սարգսյանն ասում, ուղղված է օլիգարխիկ համակարգի վերջնական ջախջախմանը։ Եվ այդ քայլը պետք է անել։ Ընտրությունները պետք է անցկացնել եւ պետք է առաջ գնալ։ Բայց դրանից հետո միևնույն է մենք պիտի մտածենք, որ դեմոկրատիան իրական կարող է լինել միայն այն դեպքում, եթե կան կողմեր եւ կա դեպք։
Okay, thank you. And my other question was for Mr. Ghazaryan, and I wanted to ask about Pashinyan's calls for repatriation. I wanted to know whether there are any positive indicators on this matter.
This is a good question because it's professional for me. And so there are two indicators that are positive. The first is the border crossings. And the border crossings have been negative overall. But if you compare it with the border crossings of the last year, the first 6 months, because we don't have other data, we have significant change. So if we take the incomes and incomings and outgoings and we do the math, so it's called migration saldo, and the migration saldo for the first 6 months of the last year was minus 30,000 something, and this year it is minus 6,000. So the improvement is pretty visible. And the second thing that I would like to mention is that those people that are the citizens of the Republic of Armenia and apply for asylum in the European countries. This is the data that I have taken from Eurostat, European Statistical Agency. That number has also declined. It was 3,700 something first semester of the last year, and this year it is 2,490, if I'm not mistaken. So if we combine those data, we will see that yes, we have sort of a positive migration dynamic. Yeah, that's it. On the professional level, I would just leave it there. Positive migration dynamic.
Okay, I was asked not to ask any other kind of questions, and leave the floor for you. If you have questions, yeah, yes.
We just go already to the questions. Hi, hello. Thank you very much for coming. Okay, before asking my question, I'll give you just a little bit background. So I'm trying to get involved into Armenian politics recently. I might get some things wrong, but I would really like to hear your views on the recent constitutional reform. It was October 2nd, I believe, that the majority in the parliament passed a bill amending
It's not a constitutional reform, it's a change in a law.
It's a change in the law.
Constitutional reform is a big term. That means you change your constitution. We did that in 2015.
Okay.
That was a change in the law.
So the change in the law, as far as I understand it, proposes that if the quorum at the parliament is not met, then the vote is not considered void, it's considered halted. What I want to understand is, maybe you have any insights, what was the aim of this reform? Is there, I mean, because it has to be signed by the president and then ratified by the constitutional court. I mean, my question is there any way this will prevent what Pashinyan and the people want to do and are willing to do. Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah, do you want me to take it? Yeah, so that's what I said when I was, you have a strong parliament. You might not like it because all these are the bad guys now. But the irony of the situation for me personally and the beauty of the situation is we have arrived at what we struggled for. We have a parliamentary democracy with a strong parliament, and the prime minister has to take into account that and has to negotiate or try to push them. And there are two strategies. You try to push them or you try to negotiate. He tried pushing them. I'm going to resign and you guys, early elections. And they tried to push back. And because the strategy is I'm going to resign and then I'm going to ask people to block the street so you can't even physically meet, they said, all right, but we're going to change a law to make sure that doesn't happen. And again, is that a logical thing to do? And I had this argument with a colleague of mine. Yes, it's a logical thing to do. How would you, my students, feel if I lock the doors, don't let you in to take your test, and then say, sorry, you failed? So that's what the parliament, that's my understanding. I have to admit that I have to go back and read it carefully again. And that's the thing that worries me. The entire debate, I have never seen a quote from that goddamn document yet. The entire debate is shallow, it's emotional, it's black and white, it's the good guys against bad guys. But what the parliament did is it used its power in a somewhat strange way. It was like an unexpected session. But it didn't do anything wrong. They have used their power to defend their positions against bullying, frankly, because it is bullying. I'm sorry, if you block the streets so that they can't even meet, you can't blame them for not electing the prime minister. I don't think that's gonna. I don't know if that's gonna prevent them. I don't think they're gonna try and elect a different prime minister. I think that the crisis had reached a point where everybody understands that this is not an option. What they did was to defend their own strength. And they changed the law in a way that to me sounds very logical. And so I kind of, what bothers me is the level of discussion. Not what happened. What happened was, again, a political game of powers. That's fine. But the level of discussion and how that immediately got into the same black and white, good versus bad guys and traitors of the nation, that bothers me.
That makes a lot of sense. Thank you very much.
Hi, thank you so much. So my name is Hanum, second year AUA, English and Communications. So my question is the following. Mr. Voskanyan, you have mentioned that the current government will have better backup if they give a chance to those companies, individuals who benefited from the old regime. So we all know that Pashinyan's only backup is the people. So if Pashinyan basically gives amnesty to those individuals who have benefited, will not he lose people's credibility and it will create a mess? So.
ովքեր որ քրեական հանցագործություն են գործել, միառնշանակ ձևով պետք է պատժվեն։ Խնդիրը այն մասինն է, որ եթե դուք ունեցել եք մի համակարգ, որտեղ մարդիկ այդ կարգով են գործում, եւ դուք էլ գործել եք, այդ կարգի մեջ հարստացել եք, հիմա անհնար է բոլորին պատժելը։ Տեսեք, ուրեմն չի կարելի, ասենք, մեղադրել բոլորին, որովհետեւ ամբողջ համակարգը այդպիսին է։ Ընդ որում մենք էլ մեր տեղում, չէ, յուրաքանչյուրը մեզանից արել է ինչ-որ մի բան, որը այդ պահին հնարավոր է անել։ Վերջապես ես կարող եմ ասել, որ կաշառակերությունը շատ վատ բան է, բայց մեքենայով գնամ, ոստիկանը ինձ կանգնեցնի եւ անմեղ տեղը մեղադրի, ես կհանեմ իրեն ինչ-որ գումար կտամ, որպեսզի ինքը ինձ չգնա մտնեմ հետևից։ Այսինքն այդ բոլոր դեպքերը պատժել հնարավոր չի։ Հետևաբար խոսքը նրա մասին չէ, որպեսզի մարդկանց պատժից ազատենք, ոչ մի դեպքում։ Խոսքը նրա մասին է, որպեսզի մենք ասենք մեղավոր եք, հետևաբար բարի եղեք, ինստիտուցիոնալ ձևով արձանագրենք ձեր մեղքը նրանով, որ դուք պարտավորվում եք այս ժողովրդին հետ վճարել։ Հասկանում եք, այս հետ վճարելու խնդիրը կա այստեղ, եւ մի խնդրեմ կա, որ ես ուզում եմ դնել, ինչու եմ այս ֆոնդը շեշտում։ Որովհետեւ օրինակ ասենք երբեմն հիմա ասվում է, չէ, ասենք մեկը անօրինական գումար է վաստակել, մենք գումարը բերում ենք բյուջե։ Եթե մենք գումարը բերում ենք բյուջե, ես չգիտեմ դա ոնց է ծախսվում։ Բայց եթե ես ստեղծում եմ սոցիալական ֆոնդ եւ ասում եմ դա ինչպես է ծախսվում, Մարդիկ գիտեն, որ այ մենք նրանից դերձել ենք անօրինակած ուրեմն վաստակածը, վերել ենք այդ ֆոնդը եւ մարդիկ գիտեն դրանից ուր է գնալու։ Իմիջիալոտ այդ Գագիկ Ծառուկյանի ամբողջ բազմաճարճար պատմությունն էլ դրանով է պայմանավորված, որտեղ ինքը անընդհատ խոսում է իր այդպես բարեգործության մասին, բայց այդ բարեգործությունը այնպեսին է, որ ինչ ուզի, այնպես էլ կանի։ Կուզեմ սրան կնվիրեմ, կուզեմ նրան կնվիրեմ, դա իսկական բարեգործություն չի։ Արևմտյան բարեգործությունը ո՞րն է։ Ես ստեղծում եմ ֆոնդ, ենթադրենք, որ 3 ուսանող իրավունք ունեն իմ գրանտներով գնալ արտասահման սովորել, եւ ես չեմ որոշում, թե որ ուսանողն է գնալ։ Ես կարգը դնում եմ, ասում եմ գնացեք դիմեք, ով որ կընտրի, նա էլ կգնա։ Սա է իսկական բարեգործությունը, եւ եթե այդպիսի ֆոնդերը ստեղծեն, ապա այդ հարուստները, որոնք ժամանակին անօրինական հարստացել են, գուցե համաձայնեն այդ բանը անել, որովհետեւ եթե դա չանեն, իսկապես ժողովրդի զայրույթը կարող է նրան հասցնել, որ իրենք ամեն ինչ կորցնեն։ Սրա մասին է։
Any other questions?
Hello, my name is Vaun. I'm a second year business student. My question is following. So I can see that many people in the streets and I don't know, taxi drivers and the people who are in the just yard talking about the parliament and the politics, they all admire Nikol Pashinyan and his team. Plus, I could see a lot of posts in Facebook that they are like calling Nikol Pashinyan as their king, and I also seen some say that Nikol Pashinyan is our god. So, what is my concern? That Nikol Pashinyan is getting a lot of likes and from Facebook, and a lot of people who are ready to follow him until the death. Would it create kind of a dictatorship in some years, or if they not succeed in their politics, would it turn the society into a chaos, making a new revolution and not the velvet one, but the strong one? Thank you.
Do you mind if I jump in? Yeah, this is something I hear a lot, and it confuses me. For 25 years. It was an absolute, symbolically and for some people physically, violent regime for 25 years. Somehow, we weren't having this conversation then about, wait, is this a dictatorship? How could this be? The fact is, this guy, whether it's Nikol, it could be Boris Bohosyan, it could be whoever it is, I don't really care. Some person has stepped up and he has awakened in people hope. What Jenny mentioned earlier, something very simple, just hope, a little sense that, oh, maybe things might get better. Maybe I don't have to leave Armenia this year. Let me wait another year, then I'll think about leaving. These are little things, but they're not little things. So, earlier I think there was a comment about him riding his bicycle, this and that. Those are actually big deals. That's a very big deal. A person who, with respect, with dignity, with compassion for other people, talks about how to, not waste energy, or who in the middle of that rally at the parliament last week, stops in the middle of a very tense moment and starts telling people, hey brother, if someone's pushing you, you don't have to talk rudely. Just be polite and say, sir, do you mind stepping aside? I'm trying to see the speech. Dude, those are really big deals, actually. Because a lot of the problems in Armenia, this is my view, of course, and again, a little bit from a diasporan perspective, it's been a little shocking to me here, the level of microaggression, kind of just people, a lot of anxiety, tension, the way people deal with each other. To have a leader that's kind of willing to talk not just about the big things, kind of revolutionary things. In my opinion, the real revolution is just this everyday exchanges that now people are having, the way they're dealing with each other now very differently than they were all this time that I've been living here. So if that means he's going to ride his bike and get 50,000 likes, or he's going to say something with his selfie stick, of course it's a little bit, I understand that some of the silliness, but for 25 years it was a kind of dictatorship. So, suddenly this guy who's only been at this for 6 months, we're all worried that he's going to be a dictator. I find that to be a little bit strange for people to be so concerned about that. So that's my 2 cents on it.
If I can add though, but I see where the concern comes from, to be honest, because if you ask your parents how much Levon Paturyan was loved, the parallel is kind of frightening. Of course, Nikol Pashinyan is very different. He acts differently. He has that humility that Levon Paturyan never had, and he has that. He constantly tries to like bring it back and say it's not about me, it's about you people, and he does a lot of things right, I think. But that fear, I think, comes from there because our parents' generation admired someone just as deeply, and then got terribly, terribly disappointed. So I have that same fear as well, especially for the younger generation. Please don't get disappointed. And so asking these questions, I think, is an antidote. If people admire him, people admire him. Okay, but can that lead into future problems and disappointments? I'm afraid yes. So let's from now on just agree that he's a great guy, but he's not God, and things will go wrong. And let's try to like be prepared for these disappointments in life because that can happen, right? But I think that's something at the back of a lot of people's minds. Yeah. So that's a good question to ask.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Maybe we could move to the what is next section of this event.
There is more question.
Okay, very short, please, very short answer.
Okay, yeah, Yevgenya Paturyan, a business student. My question is about Al-Masar, the mine, and it's kind of hanging in the air. No one talks about it. What do you think should the government do, and what should be the steps, and what will be the consequences of taking those steps? Thank you.
Who do you address your question?
Mr. Avetian, probably, because it's kind of affecting the investment sphere.
Okay, I was actually a bit surprised that for a developing country, usually natural resources is one of the ways to grow and bring export revenues. So for us to advance so fast and kind of put a hindrances and challenges for mining in Armenia was a bit of a surprise that we have actually advanced so far. That has become a big issue for us. Generally, I would say as a signal to foreign investment, it's not a positive one. Okay, whatever your previous government did, obviously foreign investors understand that politics in developing countries is unstable, it's bound to change, but it's not a good precedent at all. Because the law is the law, the agreement is an agreement, and you should keep yourself to the agreement. Unless there are things that unless you're breaking the law and doing something illegal, or there's something, basically something that shouldn't have been done. As far as I see it, there are no such issues. It's just a natural conservation issue that's there, and to my understanding, it's also a bit of a political issue rather than an illegal issue. So my hope is that this will be solved. I think as a precedent, all of these things that have been done today are setting precedents. Starting from April, it's setting everything is a precedent, for good or for bad. And if this might not be interpreted as a good precedent for with regard to foreign investment inflows, and you see also the representatives of other countries kind of putting their opinions out there.
Okay, thank you. This is the last question that I'd like to ask you to speak really, really short. Pashinyan already said that he's going to resign latest tomorrow, and I'm wondering what will happen if he resigns. We'll have 2 weeks, and something probably might happen. What do you think will? I want to start from Mr. Vaun, and then we'll...
I mean, I think I'm probably going to gloss over that part because I have no idea. And you're right. Anything could happen. I don't think it will. I think it's going to be quite smooth. But then again, you never know. For me, in terms of what's next, again, from my perspective, there's a couple of things. I think whatever's happening here, and whatever we agree, we disagree, regardless, this discourse is just incredible. I think people they have to not forget the kind of energy and importance and health of this kind of discourse. And so I think that, for me, is something that we all have to be vigilant about, to keep talking, keep having very healthy, good conversations. I think it's important for folks to continually be involved, to be engaged in whatever way they can, civically and with civic society. But more specifically, I think it's about two things. One, it's about education. We were just talking earlier with Ashot about this. I think this is a national crisis in Armenia. I think education is very, very important here. And I think AUA, I think we're all fortunate. I think we're trying to create a model. We're trying to hold up a certain standard. But I think it's very important that we also work to build up all other educational institutions. There has to be, all young people here in Armenia need to have really good educations. That's the only way you continually have new generations of civic-minded citizens to be engaged, to tell Nikol Pashinyan if he's doing something wrong, or whoever the prime minister is, or to create new parties, or whatever they're going to do. And then the last thing is just as I said with my opening statement, just with the diaspora. For me, I think, not just for me, but I think for a lot of diasporans who have for many years been very critical about some of the systemic problems that we see in the diaspora, I think now it's time to have a much more honest conversation. You can't have Armenia have this kind of radical, incredible change and have the diaspora suddenly seem so stuck and stagnant in all of its institutions and its mentality and in the way it relates to Armenia. So I'm hoping to have more of those kinds of discussions.
Yeah, I'm looking at the points I prepared for what next, and we actually covered them all. So elections, definitely very important. I hope that our National Assembly will not try to elect a different prime minister. I think it would be, that means 2 more weeks of protest. So just be on standby, right? I think everybody understands we need new elections, and nobody wants to make a political suicide by trying to elect somebody else at this point. And of course, the outcome of elections, whether or not we'll have a strong opposition, will, I think, be important. And yeah, it's about diversity, and that's what we kind of talked about. It kind of bothers me and some people here that there is lack of diversity, but perhaps that's what Arto said. Well, if you have a revolution, you know, for a couple of years there won't be much diversity. So hopefully it will start re-emerging. And for me, the most risk of disappointment, we cover that as well. So let's just tell each other and others that this government will make mistakes. It will not be perfect, and let's just be patient with that. In that sense, I think younger generation is actually better than the older generation. Younger generation often says, we understand, no magic bullets. It's those who are 30 and above who seem to be expecting miracles. And then I kind of would like to disagree a little bit with what one of your colleagues said. Transition will not be over after the elections. It will just begin. So what we are in for is hopefully a long and sustainable effort at transforming the society, because as you rightly pointed out, you know, things like corruption, things like nepotism, if we're serious, then we all have to gear up. And things like that, you know, it takes years, it takes decades. And it, you know, hopefully we're on that path of consolidating and transforming this society into something better. But we have a work cut out for us for the next 20 years or so, I would say.
Are we covering the what next? Okay. Yeah. So as I mentioned, the economics onwards is not unquestionably positive. So the issue will be, and even if everything goes stably and smoothly, any reform you're going to do as a government, as a policymaker, will take at least 3 to 5 years to actually materialize in any beneficial improvements in wages and so on. So for these, in 3 to 5 years, which means if you have, for example, Macron, that's like record low popularity, all of these reforms that have been done by him in the last couple of years have not beared fruit yet. So which means the popularity is very low, and a lot of times the stuff you do today will only be felt in a couple of years, which means maybe not even you will be reaping the rewards of that, which you haven't done. So in the worst case, if there is some kind of economic downturn globally, obviously it will transpire into Armenia. If everything goes bad, if everything goes well, it's still going to take a couple of years. And so my point will be is that support your government as much as possible. I was not in the front rows of the revolution. I was very skeptical. I'm a very risk-averse person, which means I saw a lot of risk, a lot of weak institutions, a lot of risk financial, military, and so on and so forth. Mostly, unless the state cheats people by cheating votes, for me, that's the threshold for me. In this case, I think we all need to support a strong state, a strong government, because a lot of things will be difficult, unfortunately. So, I heard Vahan's argument that this comment on Facebook, there's a lot of conspiracy theories, there's a lot of fake news, which means a lot of stuff is not honest. A lot of stuff, for example, all of these legal proceedings that we're seeing today are based on a lot of talk for 10, 15 years that this person has accumulated this billions and these people have accumulated this 15 banks. Okay, a lot of stuff just creates a lot of irritation in the society, and irritation in the society and questioning the credibility of your state institutions, of your government, is not a good thing for your country as a whole, as a state. It just weakens it. So support the government, support the state, at least for a couple of years. Okay, that would be my point, because a couple of years might be quite difficult, also economically. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Ես ուզում եմ վերադառնալ այն գաղափարին, որից մենք սկսեցինք մեր զրույցը, Արտոն երբ որ նշեց, որ ներկան դուք եք, այսինքն նշելով երիտասարդությանը, ես պիտի ասեմ, որ ինձ համար այս օրերին, մանավանդ այդ ամենաբուռն օրերին, ամենամեծ նվերներից մեկը եղավ, երբ որ իմ հենց այս համալսարանի ուսանողներից մեկը ինձ հանդիպելով փողոցում, այսպեսի մի բան ասեց, տեսակ, այն ինչ դուք մեզ սովորեցնում էիք, մենք արեցինք։ Այսինքն այդ երիտասարդները արեցին այն, ինչ որ մեծերը ոնց որ թե չէին կարողանում անել։ Այնպես որ փաստ է, որ այս հեղափոխությունը երիտասարդության հեղափոխություն։ Դա նրա ուժն է, բայց միևնույն ժամանակ դա նրա թուլությունն է։ Դա նրա թուլությունն է, որովհետև երիտասարդությունն է երբեմն տպավորություն ունի, որ այն հանգամանքը, որ ինքը երիտասարդ է, արդեն բավական է։ Բայց դա բավական չի։ Եվ ես ուզում եմ հիշեցնել, որ այս հեղափոխությամբ ամբողջ ժողովուրդը ոգևորված էր։ Ոգևորված էին 30 տարեկանները, 40, 20-ների չէ, 20-ի մասին չեմ խոսում, 40-ները, 50-ները, 60-ները եւ հանկարծ զգալի մասը այդ ժողովրդի իրեն խաղից դուրս տրված է տեսնում։ Ուսումն ասում եմ, մենք բոլորս ոնց որ թե ուզում էինք որ դա լինի, հիմա պարզվում է, որ մենակ այս ջահելներն են դա արել։ Սա վտանգավոր է, մենք պետք է կարողանանք ներգրավել ամբողջ երիտասարդություն, ամբողջ ուրեմն հասարակությունը։ Եվ ես կարծում եմ, այստեղ էլ դերը երիտասարդությանն է, որովհետև երիտասարդությունը ի վիճակի է դիֆերենցված մտածել, մի տոտալ ձևով չգնալ։ Ինձ պատմել են, ես չեմ տեսել, բայց ինձ պատմել են մի շատ հետաքրքիր ակցիայի մասին, որը էլի նորից ձեր համալսարանի ուսանողներն են արել, որոնք փողոցում ճեմում էին եւ հետեւյալը ուրեմն բացականչում Սերժը մեր պապան չի, մենք պապա չունենք։ Այստեղ կարևորը այն չի, որ ով պապան չի, կարևորն է, որ մենք պապա չունենք։ Այսինքն մենք ինքնուրույն ենք, մենք մտածող ենք։ Եվ այստեղ ես իսկապես կարծում եմ, որ կրթության հարցը շատ կարևոր է, եւ ուրեմն եթե երիտասարդությունը կարողանա այդ դիֆերենցումը առաջ տանել, ապա այս բոլոր ասացի հետ միասին ապագան պետք է լավ լինի։ Ես ուզում եմ վերջացնել մի շատ հետաքրքիր բանաստեղծությամբ, Ժանա Անդրեասյանը, սոցիոլոգ, մի շատ հետաքրքիր բանաստեղծություն է գրել, որտեղ իրոնիկ տողեր կար, նա լավատես էր ինչպես հանրապետական, ես վատատես էի որպես հայրենասեր։ Այսինքն երկար ժամանակ մենք համարել ենք, որ լավատես լինելը ամոթ է։ Ով որ ասում է ես լավատես եմ, նա ստում է։ Ով որ ասում է ես լավատես եմ, նա ուրեմն ռեժիմի կողմնակից է։ Եվ հիմա Փառք Աստծո, իսկապես ասվեց դրա մասին նույնպես, հույսը վերադարձել է։ Եվ այդ հույսը մեզ օգնում է, որպեսզի մենք մեր քայլերը անենք։
Okay, I think I'll start again from a boring point and would quote Francis Fukuyama in his latest book about political order and political decay. Fukuyama points out three issues. First is the state, second is the rule of law, and third is accountability. So, and he points out that the development usually goes in that sequence. you have strong states, and then those strong states develop rule of law, and then at the end you get the accountability. So here we have sort of a reverse type of situation. We have semi-strong state. Actually, in comparison with a lot of states, it's quite strong. We have a lot of accountability, and we have just nascent rule of law. This is rule of law that has just been born, you know. So this is sort of this problem of unequal development, and I think that would be what is next. We will try to develop these things in parallel. And from my professional point of view, what is next? A lot of hard work.
Okay, thank you. So we'll have Anahit thanking everyone.
Okay, so thank you for your presence again. This was it. Thank you, our panelists. Let's just clap for them. Thank you for your comments. And please let us take a picture with you. So, with Stuka Club. And you. So,
I would also like to thank all our club members because they did a great job. I would like to call their names. We have Anushit, we have Anahid, and we have Maher, and my sister also was helping us, and we have Ani Jilagan who is taking the pictures. And thank you, it's because of you this was possible. Thank you. Let's have a